I'll never forget the day I watched an American tourist try to cross a London street for the first time. He stood at the curb, waiting patiently for the light to turn green, just like back home. But in the UK, the pedestrian signal is a tiny, barely visible man who only turns green for about 3 seconds, if you're lucky. The American kept glancing at the traffic, then at the locals, who were already halfway across the road, weaving between double-decker buses like it was a competitive sport. He finally took a deep breath, stepped off the curb, and immediately jumped back as a black cab whizzed by, missing him by inches. "Is there a secret code for crossing here?" he asked, wide-eyed, as a group of school kids breezed past him without breaking stride. That was just the start. By lunchtime, he'd already been confused by the concept of queuing for a sandwich, horrified by the idea of beans on toast, and genuinely baffled when someone offered him a cuppa instead of a coffee. But nothing, and I mean nothing, could have prepared him for his first encounter with a British plug socket. The look on his face when he realized he needed an adapter was pure existential crisis, and if you think that's bad, just wait until you hear what happened when he tried to order chips at the pub. Trust me, you won't want to miss what happened next. If you've ever traveled abroad, you know that the real adventure isn't just in the landmarks or the museums, it's in the tiny, everyday moments that make you realize just how different the world can be. For Americans visiting the UK, those moments come fast and furious. On the surface, it seems like it should be easy. Same language, similar history, a shared love of complaining about the weather. But step off the plane at Heathrow, and suddenly you're in a parallel universe where nothing works quite the way you expect. Why does this matter? Because these little cultural curveballs are where the real stories happen. They're the reason you come. Home with tales that start with, "You won't believe what happened to me in London," and end with your friends laughing so hard they can't breathe. It's not just about getting lost on the tube or accidentally insulting someone by standing on the wrong side of the escalator. Spoiler, it's always the left. It's about realizing that what feels normal to you is completely alien to someone else. And that's both hilarious and humbling. The UK and the US might share a language, but the gap between chips and fries, pants and trousers, or even how to order a coffee is wider than the Atlantic. And for every American who thinks they're prepared, who's watched every episode of The Crown and can quote Harry Potter by heart, there's a moment of pure, unfiltered confusion waiting just around the corner. So today, we're diving into those moments. The misunderstandings, the mix-ups, and the magical chaos that happens when American logic meets British reality. Get ready to laugh, cringe, and maybe even see your own travel mishaps in a whole new light. It was a rainy Tuesday morning in London when my American friend Jake decided to run a simple errand, buy a postage stamp. "How hard can it be?" he said, umbrella in one hand, Google Maps in the other. He marched into the nearest shop, which happened to be a tiny corner store called a newsagent. He scanned the shelves, expecting to find a rack of stamps next to the candy. Bars. Nothing. He asked the shopkeeper, "Excuse me, where are your stamps?" The man behind the counter, reading a newspaper, didn't even look up. "At the till, mate." Jake blinked. "The till?" The shopkeeper finally looked up, a bit amused. "The register. You ask for. You peel them off." Jake, still unconvinced, asked, "But how do I know they're official? There's no barcode." At this point, a woman in line behind him piped up, "Love, that's how we do it here. You'll be fine." Jake paid, but the confusion didn't end there. He tried to mail his letter at a red postbox on the street, but hesitated. "Do I need to talk to someone? Is there a pickup time?" A passing local, umbrella expertly balanced on his shoulder, said, "Just pop it in. The Queen's men will handle the rest." Jake looked at me wide-eyed. "The Queen's men? Is that like a real job?" I couldn't help but laugh. Welcome to the UK, where even mailing a letter feels like a royal affair. By the end of the day, Jake had learned that in Britain, everyday tasks come with their own secret language and rituals. And if you don't know the code, you're in for a wild ride. But as confusing as stamps were, they were nothing compared to what happened when Jake tried to order pants at a department store. That's a story for later. If you think British and American English are the same, you've clearly never watched an American try to navigate a British conversation. Take my friend Sarah, for example. She was determined to blend in, so she practiced her Britishisms before her trip. Unfortunately, she learned most of them from TV and TikTok. On her first day, she walked into a cafe and confidently ordered, "A biscuit and a side of jelly, please." The server raised an eyebrow. "You want a scone with jam?" Sarah, undeterred, replied, "No, just a biscuit." "Like, with gravy?" The server looked genuinely alarmed. "Gravy? With a biscuit? Are you sure you're in the right country?" Later that afternoon, Sarah tried to compliment a shop assistant's pants. "I love your pants," she said, smiling. The assistant blushed, then burst out laughing. "Thanks, but we call these trousers. Pants means underwear here." Sarah's face turned the color of a London bus. "Oh my God, I just complimented your underwear, didn't I?" The assistant grinned. "Don't worry, happens all the time. Americans, keep us entertained." But the best moment came at a pub quiz. The host asked, "What's the capital of Wales?" Sarah buzzed in, "Wales City!" The entire room went silent. The host, trying not to laugh, replied, "It's Cardiff, love." Sarah shrugged. "Well, at least I didn't say London." The thing is, these language fails aren't just funny. They're a rite of passage. Every American in the UK has a story about calling the trunk a trunk instead of a boot, or asking for the restroom and being directed to the toilets with a look of mild concern. It's all part of the adventure. And if you think language is confusing, just wait until you see what happens when Americans try British food for the first time. That's where things get really interesting. If you want to see an American truly baffled, just take them to a traditional British cafe and hand them a full English breakfast. My cousin Emily, visiting from Texas, stared at her plate like it was a science experiment. "What is that?" she whispered, pointing at the black circular slice next to her eggs. "That's black pudding," I explained. She poked it with her fork. "Is it chocolate?" I shook my head. "It's blood sausage." Emily dropped her fork. "You eat blood for breakfast? Is this a dare?" She tried to recover by reaching for the beans. "Okay, at least I know what these are." She took a bite, then froze. "Why are the beans sweet? And why are they on toast?" I shrugged. "It's a British classic." She looked at her plate, then at me. "Where are the pancakes? The hash browns? The bottomless? Coffee?" I pointed to the tiny mug in front of her. "That's your coffee, and don't ask for refills unless you want to get side-eyed." Later, at a pub, Emily tried to order fries. The bartender replied, "You mean chips?" She nodded, relieved. "Yes, chips." A few minutes later, a plate of thick-cut fries arrived. Emily dipped one in ketchup, then asked, "Can I get some ranch?" The bartender looked confused. "Ranch? Like a farm?" Emily laughed. "No, the dressing." He shook his head. "We don't do that here, love." By the end of her trip, Emily had learned that British food isn't about big portions or bold flavors. It's about tradition, comfort, and a healthy dose of confusion for anyone who didn't grow up with it. But as strange as the food was, nothing compared to the social etiquette she encountered next. If there's one thing the British take seriously, it's queuing. Americans, on the other hand, treat lines as more of a suggestion. My friend Mike found this out the hard way at a busy London train station. He spotted a crowd near the ticket machine and, in true American fashion, walked straight to the front. Instantly, the temperature in the room dropped 10 degrees. A woman with a floral umbrella cleared her throat, a sound so sharp it could cut glass. Mike looked around, confused. "Is this not the line?" A man in a suit replied, "It's the queue. We queue here." Mike, trying to recover, stepped back. "Sorry, I didn't see any signs." The woman with the umbrella gave him a look that said, "You should have known." He spent the rest of the wait standing perfectly in line, eyes forward, not daring to move. Later that day, Mike tried to make small talk with strangers on the tube. "Nice weather today, huh?" he said to a man reading the paper. The man didn't even look up. Mike tried again with a woman next to him. She shifted away, clutching her bag a little tighter. I explained, "We don't really chat on public transport here. It's an unspoken rule." Mike shook his head. "Back home, everyone talks to everyone. This is like a library on wheels." But the real test came at the pub. Mike tried to tip the bartender after every round. The bartender kept handing the coins back, looking more confused each time. Finally, he just said, "We pay our staff a living wage here. Just enjoy your pint." Mike was stunned. "No tip? That's un-American." By the end of the week, Mike had learned that in the UK, social etiquette is a minefield, and the only way to survive is to watch, learn, and never, ever cut the queue. But as awkward as these moments were, they were nothing compared to the most outrageous misunderstanding of all. Of all the stories I've collected, there's one that stands above the rest, a moment so perfectly, hilariously wrong that it's become legendary among my friends. It happened in Oxford on a sunny afternoon when my American friend Lisa decided to rent a car for a road trip. She was confident. How hard can it be? I've driven in New York City. I can handle anything. The rental agent handed her the keys and pointed to a small manual transmission car. Lisa stared at the gear, stick like it was a puzzle from an escape room. "Wait, where's the automatic?" The agent smiled. "Most cars here are manual." Lisa gulped. "Okay, I can do this." She got in, started the engine, and immediately stalled. 3 times. By the 4th attempt. A small crowd had gathered, pretending not to watch, but definitely watching. Finally, she got the car moving, on the left side of the road. She made it 2 blocks before reaching her first roundabout. She slowed down, looked right, then left, then right again. Cars honked. Cyclists weaved around her. Lisa panicked, circled the roundabout twice, and finally exited, going the wrong way. A police officer flagged her down. "Ma'am, you're driving against traffic." Lisa, flustered, replied, "But I'm on the left." The officer nodded. "Yes, but you're supposed to go clockwise." Lisa's face turned red. "I thought roundabouts were just for decoration." After a brief, polite lecture and a lot of apologizing, Lisa managed to get back on track. She returned the car an hour later, hands shaking, and declared, "I'm never driving in the UK again. Next time I'm taking the bus." That story has become the gold standard for American misunderstandings in Britain. And if you think that's wild, just wait until you hear what happened when she tried to order a fanny pack at the market. But that's a tale for another day. Looking back on these stories, it's easy to laugh at the confusion, the awkwardness, and the sheer absurdity of it all. But beneath the humor, there's something genuinely heartwarming about these cultural collisions. Every misunderstanding is a reminder that what feels normal to us is completely foreign to someone else. And that's what makes travel so magical. For Americans in the UK, every day is a crash course in humility. You learn quickly that your way isn't the only way, and sometimes it's not even the best way. You discover that pants means underwear, that tipping isn't always expected, and that a simple task, like mailing a letter, can feel like a royal ceremony. You realize that the world is full of secret codes, unspoken rules, and traditions that have been around for centuries. But the best part? Most Brits are more amused than annoyed. They'll laugh with you, not at you, and they'll patiently explain the difference between chips and crisps, or why you should never, ever cut the queue. In the end, these moments of confusion become the stories you cherish most, the ones you'll tell for years to come. So next time you find yourself lost in translation, remember, it's all part of the adventure. And if you can laugh at yourself along the way, you're already halfway to fitting in. Now it's your turn. What's the funniest or most confusing thing you've ever experienced while traveling? Have you ever made a classic tourist mistake or watched someone else do it? Drop Your best stories in the comments below. I read every single one, and who knows, your tale might just end up in my next video. If you enjoyed this trip through the wild world of American-British culture clashes, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe for more stories just like these. And if you're planning a trip to the UK, remember, keep calm, mind the gap, and always, always queue politely. Next time, I'll be sharing the most outrageous things Americans have asked British tour guides. Trust me, you won't want to miss it. Until then, stay curious, stay humble,